Everyone remembers The Lion King as this beautiful, heartwarming Disney classic. You know? The circle of life, Hakuna Matata.
What?
Hakuna Matata!
And that moment with Mufasa that made us all ugly cry. But here's what Disney really doesn't want you thinking about. This movie is packed with stuff that should not be in a kid's film. Hidden messages, weird implications, and moments that make you go, wait, did I just see that? Okay, let's just dive right into the big one. The conspiracy theory that launched 1,000 debates. Remember the scene where Simba flops down on a cliff, all frustrated after his chat with Rafiki. Dust and flower petals kick up into the air, swirl around for a second, and then, if you pause at exactly the right frame, the particles pretty clearly spell out SEX. When parents caught this in the mid-90s, they absolutely lost it. Conservative groups started calling for boycotts. News channels were running whole segments about Disney corrupting America's children. The American Life League claimed Disney was putting subliminal sexual messages in their movies to brainwash kids. And honestly, VHS sales went up because parents wanted to check it out themselves. Disney's official response to this was, it says SFX, not SEX. They claimed it was just the effects team leaving a little signature, an innocent Easter egg that parents misread because of the timing and the blur. The animators also insisted it was innocent, but the rumor stuck. So much so that when the film was re-released in IMAX and on DVD years later, Disney quietly altered the scene to remove any hint of letters. And this wasn't the only time animators decided to push boundaries and see what they could get away with. Scar's creepy obsession with Nala. Now let's talk about something that gets way more uncomfortable the older you get. Scar and Nala's scene. So there's this moment after Scar becomes king where Nala confronts him about the Pride Lands dying. She's trying to convince him to actually do something to save everyone. And Scar? He gets really close. Like, uncomfortably close. He circles around her, uses this weird, low, seductive voice, and tells her creepily, "I'm 10 times the King Mufasa was." But the really messed up part happens right after. Nala rejects him, and Scar completely changes. He goes from flirty to violent in like 2 seconds. He literally swipes at her face with his claws. This isn't just a king being challenged by someone in his pride. This is straight up a guy getting aggressive after being rejected. The implication is pretty dark. Scar wanted Nala as his queen, not for political reasons, for personal, possessive reasons. And when she said no, he got physical. That's predatory behavior that definitely shouldn't be in a movie for 5-year-olds. That undertone was strong enough in the final cut, but early drafts made it explicit. Storyboards and deleted material included a scene called The Madness of King Scar, where Scar sings about needing a mate and producing heirs. The lyrics? They're not subtle. Scar fantasizes about little Scars running all over the place, and corners Nala against the wall until she slaps him. He even threatens, "Either be my queen or be banished." Disney cut the scene for obvious reasons. It was way too creepy for a G-rated film, but traces remain in Scar's behavior. In fact, the full song survived in the Broadway musical, where Scar's obsession with Nala is front and center. As for Jeremy Irons, the man who voiced Scar, while he didn't spell it out in interviews, he admitted Scar was written as someone whose desires were never quite appropriate, which fits the character's predatory undertones. The morning wood joke. All right, this one is probably an accident. Probably. But once you see it, good luck unseeing it. Early in the film, young Simba bounces into a den to wake up Serafina and ask if Nala can come play. It's a cute, innocent scene, except for one tiny detail. When Simba pounces on the sleeping lioness, there's this little tuft of fur that pops straight up from his head for exactly 1 frame. Is it just fur moving because of physics? Maybe. Is it an animator making a dumb joke about morning wood? Also maybe. The internet has been arguing about this for literally decades. Some people insist it's just stylized animation, the way Disney exaggerates movement for comedy. Others are convinced it's a deliberate gag that somehow made it past the producers. Honestly, we'll probably never know for sure. But the fact that it's even up for debate shows how much the animators were messing around with what they could sneak into these films. And this kind of thing happened a lot during the Disney Renaissance era. The animators were young, overworked, and bored, so they entertained themselves with tiny rebellions. Sometimes it was signing their work in dust clouds. Sometimes it was visual gags that only adults would notice. And sometimes it was, well, we'll get to more of that. Timoan's drag show. Let's talk about the hula scene. You know, the big distraction where Timoan dresses up in full drag, coconut bra, grass skirt, the whole thing, to lure the hyenas away from Simba and Nala. On the surface, it's just slapstick comedy. Timoan's doing whatever it takes to help his friends. He's being brave and ridiculous at the same time. Kids laugh at the funny little meerkat in a dress doing a goofy dance. But here's what's actually kind of fascinating. Disney put a full-on drag performance in a children's movie in 1994. This was not a progressive time for LGBTQ+ representation. This was Don't Ask, Don't Tell America, and Disney, famously conservative family values Disney, had a character dress in exaggerated feminine clothing, dance seductively, and made it the comedic highlight of the whole climax. Some critics praised it as subversive at the time. Others condemned it as mockery. The LGBTQ+ community was split on it. Some people saw Timoan as this brave, theatrical character who didn't care about gender norms. Others felt like he was just a stereotype put in there for straight audiences to laugh at. The filmmakers said it was pure comedy, nothing deeper than that. But Nathan Lane, who voiced Timoan, was openly gay and brought his own sensibility to the role. He's mentioned in interviews that he played Timoan with a little flair, and he knew exactly what he was doing. The hula scene wasn't even in the original script. Lane and Ernie Sabella improvised a lot of it, and the animators just ran with it. The circle of life makes no sense. Now, here's something that no one really talks about. The entire moral framework of this movie falls apart if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. The opening song establishes the circle of life. Everything's connected. Predator and prey exist in balance. It's all beautiful and natural. Cool, great philosophy. Except the movie immediately shows us that lions eat other animals to survive. They hunt, they kill. That's literally their job in the ecosystem. But then Simba becomes best friends with a warthog and a meerkat. Pumbaa and Timoan become his found family, his brothers basically, which raises a very uncomfortable question the movie never addresses. What does adult Simba eat? We see him eating bugs with his buddies during the Hakuna Matata montage, but that's not realistic at all. Lions are obligate carnivores. They physically need meat to survive. And the Pride Lands are packed with prey animals, the same animals that bowed to baby Simba, the same animals celebrating his return as king. So either Simba's out there eating his subjects, or he's somehow surviving on a diet that should literally kill him. The movie wants us to buy into this beautiful natural order where everything has its place, but it just ignores the fact that the hero's entire species eats everyone else in the kingdom. It gets even weirder when you realize Simba's best friends are animals he should see as food. That's like a human being best friends with a talking chicken and a talking pig while still eating chicken and bacon for dinner. At some point, your brain has to just break from the cognitive dissonance. Disney tried to have it both ways. Show the noble, natural order of predator and prey while also making the predators likable by giving them cute prey friends. It's completely incoherent when you actually think about it, and once you notice, the whole movie feels like it's built on a weird lie. Scar's deleted backstory. Here's something that almost made it into the film but got cut for being way too dark. Scar's original backstory that explains his name and why he hates Mufasa so much. In early story drafts, Scar wasn't always called Scar. His actual birth name was Taka, which apparently means trash or dirt in Swahili. Already pretty messed up. But it gets darker. The original backstory had the two brothers fighting over a lioness when they were younger. Taka challenged Mufasa for this female's affection, got absolutely destroyed in the fight, and got the scar on his face in the process. From that point on, everyone called him Scar as a constant reminder of his humiliation and loss. The filmmakers ended up cutting this because it made Mufasa look bad. The noble hero king scarring his own brother over a woman? Not exactly the vibe they wanted, but you can still see traces of this backstory in the final film. Scar's resentment feels deeply personal. His obsession with power reads like he's overcompensating for something, and his creepy behavior toward Nala makes way more sense if you know his whole villainy is partially rooted in romantic rejection and jealousy. This deleted context also raises some questions about how the pride actually works. If two brothers are fighting over potential mates, that suggests some really questionable family dynamics. Real lion prides don't work like this. Male lions typically leave their birth pride. But Disney's version keeps brothers together competing for power and mates, which just creates this whole situation ripe for drama and, well, problematic implications. If we haven't traumatized your grandchildren yet, buckle up because a stampede is coming to do just that. Meanwhile, get subscribed to hear more Dirty Disney before we have to delete it from the channel due to corporate pressures. Zarzu's inappropriate jokes. Let's talk about Zarzu for a second, the uptight bird advisor who's basically there for comic relief. Rowan Atkinson voiced him with this perfect dry British wit that works on two levels. Kids laugh at the physical comedy, adults laugh at the sarcasm and snark, but some of his jokes are questionable at best. When Mufasa tells Zarzu to take Simba home, Zarzu mutters something about being a glorified babysitter. Fine, whatever. But earlier, when he's discussing Simba and Nala's arranged marriage, Zarzu has this whole bit about their betrothal that lands really weird when you remember these are literal children. He's essentially joking about child marriage in a Disney movie for kids. There's also a deleted scene. It was storyboarded but never actually animated, where Zarzu makes an even more explicit joke about the birds and the bees. The setup was Simba asking where cubs come from and Zarzu launching into this super uncomfortable explanation using euphemisms and metaphors. The directors cut it for being too adult, but the fact that it was written and storyboarded at all shows the filmmakers were playing with way more mature themes than anyone remembers. And then there's the whole thing where Scar keeps Zazu in a cage after taking over. Scar forces him to sing, mocks him constantly, treats him like a pet. It's played for laughs, but it's also straight-up psychological torture. A political prisoner being forced to perform for his captor's entertainment while starving in a cage. That's actually really dark when you think about it. The hyenas and class warfare. Now we need to talk about the hyenas because their whole portrayal is way more problematic than anyone wants to admit. The hyenas live in the elephant graveyard, this dark, desolate wasteland outside the Pride Lands. They're explicitly banned from the good areas. Mufasa straight up tells Simba to never go there, and it's crystal clear the hyenas are treated as lesser beings, as criminals, as dangerous outsiders who need to be kept away. They're literally segregated from society. When Scar takes power, he lets the hyenas into the Pride Lands, and everything immediately falls apart. The land dies. The prey disappears. The whole kingdom becomes a wasteland. The movie directly connects the hyenas' presence with decay and destruction. They're shown as stupid, violent, and dangerous. They talk in this urban, streetwise slang, especially Whoopi Goldberg's character Shenzi. So let's just say what nobody wants to say out loud. The hyenas are coded as an underclass, possibly even racially coded, and the film's entire message is that letting them into civilized society causes everything to collapse. That's really uncomfortable when you actually think about it. Now, the filmmakers have defended this by pointing out that hyenas are natural scavengers and enemies of lions in the wild. Fair enough, but they made very specific choices about how to portray them, the voices, the mannerisms, the way they're explicitly excluded from the circle of life. The hyenas aren't part of the natural order. They're outside it, threatening it, corrupting it. And when Simba comes back to restore balance, he kicks the hyenas out, sends them back to the elephant graveyard, back to segregation. The movie frames this as justice, as restoring the proper order of things. But think about what that actually means. The rightful king returns and immediately reestablishes the class system that keeps undesirables in their place. That's not exactly a feel-good message. That's literally maintaining systemic inequality and calling it heroism. The Stampede. Selling trauma. We need to talk about Mufasa's death, not the emotional impact. Everyone knows it's devastating and traumatic. But the actual choice to show it the way they did. Disney made a very deliberate decision to graphically show a father being murdered while his child watches helplessly. They animated Mufasa's terror as he's falling. They showed his desperate attempt to climb out. They showed him hitting the ground. They showed his broken body lying in the ravine. They had little Simba try to wake him up, nuzzle his paw, slowly realize his dad is dead and never coming back. This scene traumatized an entire generation of kids. Like, legitimately. Therapists have written actual papers about children developing anxiety around parental death, specifically because of The Lion King. Some parents straight up refuse to let their kids watch this movie because of this one scene. And Disney knew exactly what they were doing. They'd studied Bambi's impact. They understood that killing the parent was emotionally effective. But they went way further than Bambi did. They made it violent and graphic. They made it Simba's fault, or at least, they made Simba believe it was his fault through Scar's manipulation. They added layers of guilt and psychological trauma that Bambi didn't have. Why? Because it works. Trauma sells tickets. Emotional devastation makes a film memorable and gets people talking. Kids crying in theaters meant parents discussing the movie with other parents, which meant word-of-mouth marketing, which meant box office success. The Lion King made almost $1 billion worldwide. It became the highest-grossing traditionally animated film in history at the time. And a huge chunk of that success came from marketing the scene that will make you cry. Disney literally packaged and sold childhood trauma as family entertainment. That's pretty messed up when you really sit with it. The ending that makes no sense. Let's wrap up with this. The film's happy ending is complete nonsense if you think about it for even a second. Simba comes back, fights Scar, wins, and immediately, like instantly, the Pride Lands recover. Rain starts falling, grass starts growing, prey animals return. Everything's magically fixed because the rightful king is back on the throne. This is straight-up monarchy propaganda. The movie's entire message is that bloodline determines worth, that hereditary rule creates natural prosperity, and that challenging the established order leads to destruction and chaos. It's literally the divine right of kings dressed up in a talking animal costume. Simba didn't earn his kingship through wisdom, leadership skills, or proving himself worthy. He was just born into it. He ran away from all responsibility for years. He only came back because Nala found him and guilt-tripped him into it. And the second he takes his rightful place on Pride Rock, boom, everything's perfect again. Not because of anything he actually did, but purely because of his bloodline. Now compare that to Scar, who was never supposed to rule. He was the spare, the backup, the brother who lived in Mufasa's shadow his whole life. Everything he did to take power was wrong and villainous, sure. But his basic motivation, wanting recognition, wanting to matter, wanting to be more than just the overlooked second son, that's actually pretty understandable. The movie just doesn't engage with any of that. It simply says he's evil, he's not the rightful king, so nothing he does can ever be legitimate. That's not really a message we should be teaching kids, but it's wrapped up in such gorgeous animation, such powerful music, such incredible voice acting, that we just accept it without questioning any of it. The real circle of life. So what have we actually learned here? The Lion King is absolutely packed with moments ranging from questionable to straight-up inappropriate. Hidden messages in dust clouds, predatory behavior played for drama, jokes about child marriage, class warfare disguised as natural order, childhood trauma marketed as entertainment. Disney thought they were making this timeless, beautiful story about responsibility, family, and legacy. They had no clue they were creating something packed with adult implications, hidden rebellions from overworked animators, and messages that would get more and more uncomfortable as society evolved and changed. They wanted to give us the circle of life. What they actually gave us was something way more complicated. A film that's simultaneously a genuine masterpiece and deeply flawed in ways we're only now really unpacking. If you enjoyed this deep dive, then hit that like button, subscribe for more movie facts, and tell us in the comments what do you think about The Lion King now. Stick around because coming up, there's some even darker Disney being revealed. And make sure you like and subscribe before you see what's coming up next.
Wow, that was weird.